is the mechanism for, if it's not there now, about making it so. But inside of making an exemption, then before you just bless an exemption, you are supposed to go through a process that analyzes, makes certain findings. That the lack of bids, in other words, not going out and getting bids or quotes from somebody else, will not result in favoritism or diminish competition.
But once again, bids don't apply. We're not taking bids. We're following the mandate that says 2/7 of the TRT funds must be spent for media advertising to promote the truth. So we're not taking bids. We're not saying, well, what will you charge us to do? We have to spend that money for that purpose. We have no alternative than to spend it that way.
So the apple is that first part, and then right behind it comes the orange, the process by which you do get to spend the money. You have the direction to collect the tax and spend it that on a purpose. Now, how do you execute the purpose? That's what the orange is. That's what the public contracting law tells you. And inside of that law, it says, general rule, bid process, exemptions less than 5,000, between 5 and 75 get quotes, over 75 get bids. That's based on dollar value of the contract and the purpose. Now, if the purpose fits one of the exemptions that the council by ordinance has already recognized, then we're golden. We don't have to worry about a bid process. You just go out and write the check or enter in the contract. And I like the chamber. I don't want this to sound like there's something in any negative way. This is simply trying to keep us following the orange, the public contracting law. Once we've collected the money, and then we now have to spend it for the way the Apple and that TRT tax statutes say we have to. And we're on the same page. And I don't have any, and from the standpoint, if you were just hiring, say, the chamber as a middleman for going out and contracting for advertising, go print or publicize this, and that was the purpose of the contract, then we don't have, I don't think we've got an issue. If they're a middleman, I don't know enough about the media industry to know if that's a common practice, or if you just go out and actually, I mean, from a television advertising standpoint, then the television station, presumably you just go contract with, and we don't have an issue about just spending that money using that process, that public contracting process, and contracting with the television station and getting that word out. The issue is whether the purpose that we are contracting for is already identified as an exemption. And if it's just promotion, if that's all we have, I don't have a nice, clean exemption in what we already have in this nice list already in our ordinance. I have things that I know touch on what the contract has been on in the past. And I have had some creative thinking about how, if I was arguing for the chamber, how I would try to say it fits in this portion of the definition. But I'm city's attorney, and I've got to watch out for something coming back on city in the public contracting realm, because inside those statutes there is an attorney's fees provision that if you had a contract out in violation of state law or your contracting rules, and somebody who feels aggrieved by that, then they can sue the city, and if they are successful, get their attorney's fees. And I have experience in that. So I'm just trying to keep everybody's nose clean, our nose clean, and I'm not trying to, I will do what you guys want to do. It help craft a resolution, try to develop defensible analysis for the findings that you're required to make. If that's the direction you want to go. Creating, but city's law, I still have to follow the law. And that's what I'm trying to make clear.
Well, John, I think we are too. I mean, the chamber came to us with the proposal, and they said, here's what we'll do for you if we handle the media advertising, the TV stations, the papers, the flyers, they gave us all that. Now, this says we can decide to exempt this from request for bids and contract with the chamber. So I don't understand what about that is not legal.
If you make the if you make the proper findings that the city's ordinance requires, and if those findings are defensible, if somebody later challenges them, then there's no problem. If there is an expenditure by the council that turns out to be an illegal expenditure, then there is a risk for personal liability on the part of the council. And I want to do my darndest to try to head off anything like that. I'm not saying that's the case here, but if it's just advertising, if that's all we're talking about, just advertising, then there is an exemption inside of the ordinance currently.
That's what it is. It's media advertising. That's what it is, John.
And then we really don't have a discussion here. I was charged with going and looking at the ordinance and the laws, and being prepared to advise you.
Okay. But, and the 2%, when I first got into this, was unique with Rockaway Beach. This is something our forefathers sought to do. The other cities, if you call and say, what do you do with your 2% media advertising, they say, what? This was a Rockaway Beach. The state set the 5%. Our forefathers said, well, we want another additional 2%.
No, the state did not say 5%.
Well, at that time, when
2003, when the state legislated, and I did look at these statutes on the transient lodging tax is how it's referred to inside that, and I think it's ORS 320.350, and actually 300 to 320.300 to 320.5 or 320.350. So it's 300 to 350. There's about 4 or 5 statutes inside that grouping. In 2003, the state legislature mandated that no further transient lodging taxes would be enacted by cities. If you had something in place at that time, it was fine, and it stayed on the books at that rate. It froze the percentages of expenditures for tourism or tourism promotion at whatever the city or whatever jurisdiction did at that time on January 1, 2003, I believe, at whatever was present at that time. It did create at that time the 5% commission that for the, it also has a 1% state tax that was created at that time. But it created a 5% commission on monies that were collected by the motel or hotel or whatever the lodging facility was, that whatever portion of the tax that was collected for the state, that 1%, 5% of the 1% was what the provider or the motel owner got to keep as their commission for collecting the tax. It also created a similar 5% for cities, of what is collected for cities. And I'm going to be a little fuzzy here. If the city already had some kind of commission that it gave the provider, it froze that commission at that time, but said later, if you raise the rate, then the 5% kicks in. I think that was the way it worked. Anyway, long story short, the city still has a transient room tax at the rate it has. It can increase that if it so chooses, but if it does so, there is another formula that applies. I think it's a 60-40 or a 70-30 formula where 70% goes to tourism and promotion, 30% would go to general fund or whatever city purposes are of that increase, or a new tax. And so those laws are out there along, and that may be where you got your 5%.
I'm not against, I wasn't talking about the 5%, I was saying 2% was unique with Rockaway. I rest my case, John. I don't
Anyway, I will do my best to carry the council's intentions forward. If it's just advertising is all we're talking about, again, there's an exemption in there presently. If there's something more than advertising that there's no exemption for, then I will certainly provide that advice to the city manager and the council at the appropriate time.
Okay,
So what's my direction?
yeah, what do we?
Yes.
So based on what I've heard, so the council wishes me to contact the Chamber of Commerce and negotiate an advertising or media advertising contract within the budget for the 2%.
The key is the word advertising.
Right.
Right.
That's the key.
Correct.
Okay, we will do that.
Okay. All right, so we will move on to resolution number 12-606, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2012, 2013. All right, so do you have comments?
I have a comment. First of all, I wish George Taylor, when he came to the budget committee meeting, instead of saying F this and F that, would have provided some input into what he was concerned about with the budget.
He
There-
did, and he was not on the
I'm
budget.
They
talking,
weren't.
I'm
Yes.
talking.
Yeah.
Also, I am concerned about the real motive behind this. However, there are some things that have been brought up that I think we need to address. And that being said, I think we need a little bit of time to look this over. I think that we need to be in communication with the auditing team and get their take on it.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll provide them a copy of this.
not
tomorrow,
sure
okay,
how
we'll-
this will come into play with our deadlines.
Well, we have to pass the budget by the 30th of June.
Okay, so
So
we
we have-
still,
We have one
Okay.
more meeting.
That's according to
Then-
state budget law, which,
then I would suggest we get our auditor on this. I would really like to know the validity of this and find out exactly where we stand. In the meantime, though, if somebody ever has, when we have these budget meetings, it's your duty to come forward at that time.
and I was not contacted by anyone regarding this.
Marty, I agree with you. Also, I would like the full council to vote on it, and we're missing a council member. I think this is very important. We should have a full council vote. So I,
He'll be at the next meeting.
yeah. I think next meeting, and that gives us a chance to.
All right, so we're going to.
Continue.
Continue, yes, I was trying to think of the word, we will continue this till the next meeting. All right. All right, resolution number 12-607, extending workers' compensation coverage to volunteers. Annually, the city adopts a resolution extending workers' compensation coverage to its volunteers. This resolution would accomplish this for the fiscal year 2012-2013.
I make a motion that we accept resolution 12607 for the workers' comp coverage for volunteers for the fiscal year 2012-13.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we have approved the resolution number 12-607, extending the City of Rockaway Beach workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the City of Rockaway Beach for the fiscal year 2012-2013. All right, so now we are up to selecting Volunteer of the Year for 2012.
Do we have comments?